Welcome back to Real Talk Behind the Badge. This is our fourth podcast and where we dig into the gritty realities of law enforcement, civil rights, and public trust. Today we're going to talk about the problems of policing lawsuits, the constitutional audits, accountability, and how to make improvements. We'll unpack what's happening, why it matters, and what it's costing, literally and figuratively. Let's get started. I'm Tim, your host, a retired police sergeant with years on the beat, and lately I've been diving deep into a phenomenon that's reshaping how we view policing: First, Second, and Fourth Amendment audits. I've watched hundreds, maybe close to 1,000 of these videos on YouTube and Facebook, and as someone who wore the badge, I'm kind of stunned. Some officers uphold the law with professionalism, others violate citizens' rights without a second thought. These audit videos feature self-styled journalists armed with cameras and a working knowledge of their rights, testing police and business owners' responses in public places. Now, it's interesting how many businesses believed they own the public sidewalks or the right-of-ways in front of their businesses. What I find even more interesting is the number of police who believe the owners, with no evidence of ownership, no matter how absurd it is. The number of police that take an owner's word as gospel without investigating is breathtaking. What I've witnessed ranges from inspiring to infuriating. Hundreds of clips show officers outright trampling on constitutional protections with illegal detentions, unlawful searches, and demands for ID without cause. Some seem to act out of habit, trained to push boundaries. Others display ignorance of the law or departmental policies. And then there's the arrogance, officers who act like dictators, unmoved even when citizens threaten lawsuits or complaints. Why don't they care? Why is that, and what does it tell us? That's a question we'll circle back to. It's not all that bad. Plenty of officers shine in these videos, calm, knowledgeable, respecting boundaries, respecting the law. They de-escalate even when auditors provoke them with foul language or baiting tactics. These are the professionals. I admire them. Yet one thing nags at me. When a fellow officer crosses the line, most other officers don't intervene, even when there's 10 to 12 of them there. Junior officers especially stay silent, unaware that they too could face the bystander liability law, which is a legal doctrine holding them accountable for not stopping a colleague's misconduct. It's a ticking time bomb that is sure to go off one day with future court decisions. Who are these auditors? Some are agitators, itching for a reaction they can sue over, and many have. Court settlements in the tens or hundreds of thousands aren't uncommon. A few even make a living at it with lawyers on speed dial. Take James Freeman, a prominent auditor. His videos rack up millions of views, and he's won payouts exposing rights violations. But others are altruistic. They aim to spotlight good cops, expose the clueless ones, and debunk laws officers invent on the spot, like banning filming in public, which the Supreme Court has upheld as a First Amendment right. I'm not here to defend the troublemakers today. They're a topic for another episode. My focus is on the law-abiding citizen causing no harm, caught in the crosshairs, illegally detained, searched, or roughed up by overreaching officers. These encounters spark lawsuits, and the numbers are staggering and getting larger every single year. Let's talk money. Because I live in South Carolina, I dug into data from the state's Insurance Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024, which covers claims against public entities like police, fire, EMTs, schools, public works, etc. In just the first fiscal year quarter, July to September 2023, payouts for law enforcement only hit $9.2 million. That's a lot of money. Extrapolating that for the year, we're looking at possibly $35 to $40 million. It's very time-consuming research in each quarter, as each quarter report is approximately 100 pages long, and it contains over 2,000 claims. Here's the law enforcement breakdown for fiscal year first quarter 2024. False arrest, 14 claims, paid out over $415,000. Brutality, paid out over $1 million. Civil rights violations, paid out over $2 million. Cruel and unusual punishment, paid out $1.3 million. Due process violations, $506,000. Failure to provide medical care, paid out over $2 million. Negligent supervision, paid out over $1 million. And they had miscellaneous shootings, sexual assault, etc., paid out over $800,000. Now, false arrest alone tell a story. The second quarter of 2024 saw 15 claims for $1.1 million. The third quarter, 16 claims for $1.3 million. The fourth quarter, 24 claims for over $1 million. Total for the year payouts for just false arrests, $3.9 million. Why are there so many false arrests? What is causing this? How many of these lawsuits and payouts have you heard about in your city or state? Most probably none. Many departments and government entities don't seem to pay too much attention to lawsuits that result in payouts unless it causes bad publicity. They figured that's what they pay insurance for. In addition, most of these lawsuits had been filed 3 to 9 years before any of the payouts, and 3 to 9 years later, they are all but forgotten about by the press. Even when cases get dismissed or abandoned, defense legal fees pile up, courtesy of the taxpayer. Taking into consideration several of these lawsuits were dismissed or abandoned, the state, through the Insurance Reserve Fund, still had to pay attorney fees to defend them, and we'll talk more about that later in our next podcast. Now, that's just South Carolina. Nationally, cities like New York and Chicago shell out hundreds of millions annually. In New York, $500 million was paid out from 2018 to 2023. Now, that's from the New York Times. Over $1 billion was paid out from 2006 to 2014. Again, that's from the New York Daily News. A Washington Post analysis in 2022 noted that between 2010 and 2020, over 5,000 New York PD officers were named in multiple claims, accounting for 45% of misconduct payouts, hinting at a massive cumulative total. New York City Comptroller reports and articles show significant yearly payouts, $175.9 million in fiscal year 2019. That's from ABC News. $121 million in 2022. Again, ABC News. And $206 million in 2024. That's the New York Times. So South Carolina isn't alone in multi-million-dollar payouts, and I'm sure that most other major cities and states reflect the same. Let's look at the violations. What's driving these South Carolina fiscal year 2024 payouts? I've compiled a list of 16 recurring violations from the audits, patterns that fuel lawsuits and drain budgets. Number 1, unlawful ID demands. If there's no crime, there's no reasonable suspicion. You can't demand ID in most states without suspicion of a crime. Number 2, illegal searches. Digging into pockets for ID or anything else without an arrest. This is not a weapons pat-down, which violates the Fourth Amendment. That was the Terry v. Ohio. Unlawful detention. No possible crime articulated, no justification. Excessive detention length. The Supreme Court caps it 20 to 30 minutes max without probable cause or articulable suspicion of a crime. Handcuffing as intimidation. You can't handcuff without an arrest or an articulable threat. That's abuse. Falsely quoting law, making up statutes to scare or intimidate people. Number 7, detention as an intimidation tactic. Holding someone to teach them a lesson will come back on the department and the officers sooner or later. Ordering filming stopped on public property. First Amendment says it's legal. Ordering to stop is unconstitutional. Refusing name and badge numbers. This is most likely a policy violation in most departments. Illegal orders, commands with no legal basis. Excessive force, that is force that is beyond what's necessary. Soliciting trespass, pressuring businesses to ban someone the police might have a gripe against. Battery, that's unlawful touching or pushing. Intimidation tactics, nose-to-nose confrontations, such as walking up to a person nose-to-nose, instructing them to back up. And false arrest, no probable cause, no arrest. This is a huge liability. Lawsuits often bundle multiple violations, usually a combination of 2 or 3 or more of the above items that amplifies damages. Back to the question, why aren't officers fazed by lawsuit threats? It's simple. They very rarely pay. Taxpayers foot the bill via insurance or municipal funds. Departments treat insurance premiums like the cost of doing business, and individual officers face discipline in only 1 to 2% of misconduct cases. Now that's per a 2021 Police Quarterly study. Qualified immunity shields them from personal liability unless violations are clearly established, a high bar. That's by the court. When there's no skin in the game, there's no deterrence. Pre-smartphone complaints were he said, she said. There's no proof, there was no traction. Today, body cams and citizen videos flood the internet. Thousands of clips showing harassment, false arrest, and intimidation. It's flipped policing on its head. In 1991, Rodney King's beating was a rare, caught-on-tape scandal. Now it's daily on X and YouTube. Auditors amplify this, demanding accountability where departments won't or don't. Imagine this. You're detained against your will, you're searched, cuffed, humiliated in front of your family or friends, and then released, all illegally. You protest, but resisting will risk an arrest or worse. Your recourse, there is basically nothing you can do at the time of the incident but vocally protest and file a lawsuit later. It's costly, slow, and even if you win, the officer usually walks free while taxpayers pay. That's the rub to many of the public. Justice feels out of reach to citizens who are victims of illegal enforcement. This is why many of the public is calling for reform. The public is waking up. They're learning their rights. They're watching audits, demanding transparency. Officers are paid to know the law, yet too many don't. A 2023 Cato Institute poll found 63% of Americans want better police training. 58% support independent oversight. Auditors, love them or hate them, are forcing the issue, highlighting good cops, exposing bad ones, and pushing for a change. So what's the fix? We need to have some common sense solutions. I'm going to throw out 5 ideas I think will make a dent in the lawsuits and complaints. Number 1, we need a complete training overhaul. Mandate longer and more thorough academies, constitutional law courses, updated laws and court decisions, and make additional training yearly, not just as a rookie at the academy. Make passing grades on law at least 90%, not 60 or 70%. We need promotional training. What does that mean? Any officer promoted to a higher rank should have training for that rank that includes not only the duties, but the responsibilities for that rank. Too many departments just promote without any training for the rank given. This basically is a path to failure. We should have an independent oversight. South Carolina has got oversight boards for lawyers, judges, nurses, and teachers, as I'm sure every state does. Why not police officers? A police standards commission in every state could investigate, discipline, and decertify if necessary, free of any department bias for serious complaints or lawsuits. We need personal accountability. For certain violations, the Standards Commission should be able to fine officers for repeat offenses. It doesn't have to be a lot to make a statement, but if you do, watch the behavior shift. We need body cam enforcement. Make this mandatory for all officers and let any complainants have access to the files they need to back up their complaint. Of course, these would be with redactions for sensitive files. Policing is at a crossroads. Good officers deserve support, bad ones consequences. The millions in payouts, $3.9 million for the false arrest alone in South Carolina, and about $35 million for all law enforcement. This screams for a change. Taxpayers shouldn't have to bankroll ignorance or arrogance. Auditors are a symptom, not the disease. The cure: education, accountability, transparency, and reform. Until then, the camera's rolling and the bill is growing. So thanks for listening. Next time we'll tackle who's making all the money on law enforcement lawsuits and why, along with how we can drastically reduce those payouts easily. Hit subscribe, share your thoughts, and let's keep this conversation going. This podcast, again, is ground zero. I'm not here for theories or to hear myself talk. I want real answers and input from officers who've walked the walk. You, me, our brothers and sisters in blue, let's cut through the bullshit. Academics can keep talking all they want, but we have to build the cure. Join me at realtalkbehindthebadge.com. Drop your state, department, active, retired, what you've seen, and what solutions you have in mind. The answers are out there. We just need to find them. Let's hash out the hard fixes, stuff we can shove in front of lawmakers and make stick. We are just starting this journey, and we'd be pleased to have you join us. If you've got answers you'd like to share and you want to do it live, let me know. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, let me know. Go to realtalkbehindthebadge.com. That's realtalkbehindthebadge.com, and drop a comment or a rant. And if you can, drop a couple bucks to help us out and help keep this going. This podcast stuff ain't cheap or easy on a cop retiree's salary. Cops with scars, local with gripes, your voices fuel this. Let's tackle the mess behind the badge together. Now you can view our podcast on YouTube, Real Talk Behind the Badge, as we make them. If you hit subscribe, you'll also be notified of each podcast. Please hit the like button also. We're also on Facebook at Real Talk Behind the Badge, where you can also review all of our podcasts. Now, thanks to all our brothers and sisters behind the badge. Keep it going, and we'll get this fixed. Stay safe. This is Real Talk, signing off until next time. Thank you, and be careful out there.